about my personal point of view on this interface of Islam and AI. I said it's recent, so it's something I started thinking about just for the last year. So yeah, still still thinking about it. And so yes, I welcome feedback about this. I'm just, as I said, I'll be talking as a philosopher, which means that everything I'm going to say is subject to objection. So I really welcome feedback about this. So it says it's a slightly enhanced work since for the last 2 months. I have to improve certain things. So the first goal is the philosophy for AI and machine learning and carrying AI into philosophy. So it means that Muslim researchers. So here, what I'm trying to define is how, as Muslims, we should respond. I mean, look at the response to AI. I mean, things happen in dunya, but then the natural question is how to respond to events that happen to us according to an Islamic perspective, using ideally using wisdom. So this is what the role of Islamic philosophy is really about. This philosophy is about seeking wisdom. So here we want to see if there is a wise way to respond to AI. But then I would like to start from very fundamental questions. What is real? What does it mean to be in the world? How do we know what we know, and what should we use to know? And then I talk about Heidegger's concept of inframing, that talks about the essence of technology and how this can be useful for us as Muslims to understand how to respond to technology. And also, I'll talk about Heideggerian philosophy and the limits of symbolic AI. So symbolic AI was developed 100 years ago. And so people were adopting philosophical position. At the same time, Heidegger was refuting the same philosophical position that AI was being developed. So at the same time, some philosophers use that to just show the limitations of symbolic AI. So it's all happened and around the 40s, 50s. So yeah, if AI people at that time were aware of what Heidegger was telling about the limits of the philosophical framework they were talking about, they wouldn't have wasted probably 20, 30 years of their research. And then I'm going to try to do something similar. I'm not saying I'm Heidegger, but I'm just trying to see if there is a way for Islamic philosophy to get involved in this debate about machine learning. So I think symbolic AI is clear what the limits are about. For cognitive AI and machine learning, I mean, there are limits, but they're still not clear what the limits are. So I'll start from the beginning. What is real? What does it mean to be in the world? Yeah, for us as Muslims, I mean, God is the center of our life. So we navigate the world based on God-centered worldview. So God defines what it means to be a human being, and He sends us prophets to be followed to remind us about our mission on earth. Main principle is Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So we are from Allah and we return to Allah. So we integrate us in the stage 1, which is the Maqam al-Subarabikum, and He made us testify, am I not your Lord? And we said, yes, indeed, all human beings, they testified. And then we were made to forget, so because we came down. So this is the step of the second stage, where we came into dunya. So it's the lower level where we forgot the covenant. And so we are in dunya trying to reconnect and to Allah according to this principle, according to prophetic teachings, but the prophets are here to remind us of our mission. So that's step 2. Step 3 is the level of the barzakh, and step 4 is the mi'ad, is the resurrection, and then step 5, which is the day of judgment, and we have where we come back to Allah. So we have fariqun fil jannah and fariqun fil sa'ir. Jannah is manifestation of the divine beauty, and the sa'ir is the manifestation of divine justice. And we have category of people who have this the privilege of seeing again Allah Azza wa Jal. On that day, some places will be bright, looking at their Lord. So, and we have this main principle of one who knows himself knows his Lord. It's a statement attributed to Imam Ali. So knowing ourselves means that we already have that knowledge within us. And so we know ourselves by a prophet and by God. And so the perfect human being is Khalifatullah fil Ard. And he's the one who completely follows the Prophet outwardly and inwardly. But then, we had this Cartesian distinction that happened about 500 years ago, which is the separation between object and subject. So the center is no longer inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, is I think, therefore I am. So suddenly I is the center. And so this is like moving away from answers from the divine. And like Sayyid Hassan Nasr, he said that, yeah, it should have been, yeah, if I think, therefore he is Allah, or he is, therefore I am, but just became a full circle on the I. So from I to I, from human to human. And so this led to a human-centered worldview, where really essentially it's Western philosophers that define what it means to be a human being, based on principles like reason, individualism, and scientific approach. Otherwise, they will be dehumanized, and hence this is what really led to colonialism and genocide for the last 300-400 years ago. And so, yeah, what we are really currently witnessing in Palestine is not new, really. So it's just a consequence of this kind of worldview, and statements like, yeah, we are fighting human animals is not a slip of the tongue. It's really revealing this kind of worldviews. So the philosophers and scientists are to be viewed as prophets in that case. So these prophets talk about the future of humanity. They define what is real and define how you should do the work. They decide what one can or can't think about, what one can or can't say or do. And then you have the classification of human beings as some humans are worthy, some humans are less worthy, and some others are unworthy. So yeah, I like illustrating this through a representative of the Enlightenment in another age, was like Jürgen Habermas, is a very popular philosopher for the last 50 years or so. As he was also very popular in a lot of Islamic countries among the secular circles. But somehow, when it came to Palestine, he contradicted his own ideas, because it was one of his main principles of philosophy are the public sphere and logical debate, etc. But when it came to Palestine, he said, yeah, no, actually Israel has in principle, the right to do what it wants, the Israeli army. And so it became like a new premise of enlightenment. And yeah, so you see the contradiction in the Western worldview in that case. The other revolution that we have is the data revolution, which is where we are living now, so the data-centered worldview. So in a way, big tech companies define the perfect human being as a transhuman to be uploaded to the cloud, because a human being is viewed as data. And so eventually it will be uploaded to the cloud and it will live forever. So therefore, there is no akhirah, there is no qiyamah for transhumans, because they are just going to be there forever. So how should we respond to that kind of statements and challenges to our theology? And so the philosophers and scientists agreeing with this worldview defined by big tech are to be viewed as prophets. An example is Yuval Harari, who said recently that he attacked the religious worldview and saying that religion is no more than arbitrary beliefs and behaviors. Humanism is reliance on subjective experiences like desires and human experiences. And but he said that AI knows you more than you know yourself. So the premise that data knows you more than yourself. And so what AI can tell you is not real. So that's the underlying premise, that you shouldn't believe what AI doesn't tell you. Therefore, yeah, God is out of the sea. So this is, yeah, so here I'm just going to talk about a philosophy of technology a little bit. So we have like essentially two schools, like rationalism and empiricism. Rationalism is where reason defines what's going on in the world. Empiricism is what are the five senses, and senses in general are what can be measured, define what's in the world. And then we have philosophy of technology, which is the episteme and techne. So that they are distinct but complementary forms of knowledge. One is based on reason in a way, or what the mind is telling you, whether through thinking or through the senses. And techne is what the knowledge that you acquire using tools. So techne in earlier societies involved a closer, more respectful relationship between humans and the natural world. But according to Heidegger, technology, and in particular modern technology arising from the Industrial Revolution, is not merely a means to an end or a collection of machines and gadgets. Technology is a way of revealing and understanding the world. So AI and machine learning are very good examples about this, since machine learning aims at learning and AI aims at intelligence. And so the epistemic value of things known via machine learning and AI versus the epistemic value of things known via hammer, nailing, and nail are totally different. So the kind of knowledge that we get from both things are are different. Yeah. So yes, so here I'm just defining what an epistemic value is. It's a measure of how well something contributes to knowledge, truth, or understanding, or rational belief. So here I'm going to give two examples of how an instrument affects our way of thinking. In a way, we have tendency to think that an instrument is neutral, that it's not affecting us, but actually there have been examples now, even in philosophy, that show actually it goes both ways. One is like in the already Nietzsche noticed this in around 1882. So he had a problem with his eyesight, and so he was worried that he would no longer be able to write using his fountain pen, and so he just got a typewriter. And then by using the typewriter, because of the discrete way of entering the text, he noticed that there is his own way of thinking got discretized. And so he said that our writing equipment takes part in the form of our own thoughts. And one of the German media scholars at that time, he said that Nietzsche's prose changed from arguments to aphorism, from thoughts to puns, from rhetoric to telegram style. And that is precisely what is meant by the sentence of our writing tools are also working on our thoughts. So it goes both ways. It's never one-way thing. And another experiment was done, I think it was last year, where 1,500 participants were asked to write a paragraph answering the questions, is social media good for society? So people who use an AI writing assistant that was biased for or against social media were twice as likely to write a paragraph agreeing with the assistant. So here illustrating that we are really delegating our thinking to AI. And so this significantly will be more likely to say that they have the same opinion as the AI assistant. So in the same way that social media has been affecting the way people think about certain questions, so it has changed the political landscape by facilitating the spread of misinformation and the formation of echo chambers. Whereas AI writing tools could produce similar shifts in opinion depending on which tools users choose. Yeah, so that's, as we said, it illustrates what Heidegger is saying, that the technology is not neutral. It has an impact on our worldview. And so there is here a risk that our brain itself gets rewired and through neuroplasticity, and so the mind and aqidah gets affected, and hence the soul getting polluted, because said that there is a link between the philosophical school that we adopt and the way we perceive reality, even though the soul sees things as really are, potentially speaking, but then what we put in our mind will have an impact on the way we view things. So as I said, so according to Heidegger, modern technology in particular embodies a specific way of revealing the world, which he called inframing. So inframing refers to the process by which everything is understood and valued in terms of its usefulness and calculability. So you see there is like a reductionism tendency there in modern technology. So this mode of technology reduces the world to mere objects and reduces human existence to a calculative instrumental relation to the world. And so technology as such displaces the worldliness of the world into a man-made world. So a mere resource of standing reserved to be exploited for human purposes. So, and this is what I was talking about at the beginning, is that we are moving from God-centered worldview to a human-centered worldview to a data-centered worldview. And this is exactly what we are talking about here. We are displacing the worldliness of the world into a man-made world. So this inframing mode of technology leads to a loss of our authentic relationship with the world and with ourselves. So it obscures the true nature of things and encourages us to see everything as a resource for our consumption and control, even of other human beings, through dehumanization that justifies or leads to genocide, as we are currently witnessing in Palestine. He warns that this technological way of being in the world can lead to alienation, a loss of meaning, and the forgetfulness of our essential nature as beings capable of having and experiencing the world in a more profound and meaningful way. Heidegger acknowledges that technology has brought about significant advancements and conveniences, but he calls for a more reflective and responsible approach to technology. He argues that we need to recover a more authentic way of being, one that is attuned to the mystery and wonder of the world and allows things to reveal themselves in their own right. So this requires a shift in our understanding and relation with technology, moving away from the domination and exploitation of the world towards a more receptive and respectful engagement with it. So let's just, so now here, that was a more philosophical introduction about technology. Now I'm going to focus a little bit more about AI and reasoning as calculating. And you see Hobbes, about 500 years ago, said that reasoning is calculating with words. So you see there is this reduction of reasoning to calculation has been made clear by Hobbes and Descartes about 500 years ago. So AI, in a way, philosophically speaking, showed up not only 100 years ago when the computer came in as a device, but as a philosophy about 500 years ago. So yeah, Hobbes said reasoning is calculating with words. Descartes, as we said just now, his philosophy is often summarized by I think, therefore I am, which poses thinking as the foundation of individual existence and implies a clear dichotomy between the thinking subject, that is the mind, and the world, that is matter. So you see there is a clear distinction between the mind and the world. So this dualism leads to the conception of knowledge as primarily the representation of the external world inside the mind. And he posited that mental representation and he posited like mental representation and that our relation to the world is mediated by these representations in our mind. So these are the basic assumption in AI, that we want to do a modeling of the mental representation of the world in our mind and use this to connect with the external world. Leibniz afterward introduced this concept of universal characteristic, that is a set of primitives in which all knowledge can be expressed in a way like, and we hear about atomism, so here in a way that we are trying to atomize the way we do the problem solving. So through this kind of mental representation and universal characteristics. Kant later on said that concepts are rules, and Frege said that it is possible to formalize these rules. So symbolic AI, like that was introduced about 100 years ago, aims at problem solving and is based on the assumption of the representation or relation between the mind and the world. So it is a consequence of rationalism. So all these people here are essentially rationalists. But Heidegger, about like 100 years ago, I mean, he refuted this kind of way of looking at the world. So he developed a profound critique of the Cartesian notion of the subject and the concept of mental representation. And his critique is based on the following elements. First is the critique of the subject-object dichotomy. So he challenged the Cartesian separation between the object and the subject. So for Descartes, the mind, that is the subject, is distinct from the word object, and knowledge is about accurately representing the external world within the mind. For Descartes, there's like a one-to-one correspondence between the world and the mind. But the main premise is that there is a separation between the two. Heidegger, however, argues that human beings are always already thrown into the world, so they are entangled within it in a way that does not allow for a clear subject-object split. So this fundamental being in the world in one word, so this concept of Dasein, a term that Heidegger uses to designate human existence, is not primarily a detached observer of the world, but is existentially embedded within it. So there is no way to have this ontological separation between the subject and the object. Second element in the critique is that is being in the world. So he introduced the concept of being in the world is in one word, where he emphasizes the reflective practical engagement of humans with their environment. So before any mental representation of the world, there is a more basic ontological relation between Dasein and the world. So this relationship is characterized by involvement with and care for the world rather than a mere contemplation and or representation of it. Then there is a third third element, which is a ready to hand versus present at hand. So here Heidegger distinguishes between two modes of being, the ready to hand and the present at hand. So the ready to hand refers to how objects are encountered in everyday use without conscious reflection as part of our network of relations and purposes. For example, you have a hammer. If you are not using it, it's just an object as any other object. So using a hammer without thinking about it as an object. So only when something breaks or fails to function do objects become present at hand, and they are isolated and subject to theoretical observation or mental representation. So for Heidegger, Descartes' view of the world corresponds only to the present at hand, neglecting the primordial way in which Dasein engages with the world. And lastly, the last point is the ontological difference, where Heidegger critiques the Cartesian emphasis on epistemology over ontology. So he argues that understanding being itself and our relationship to being is more fundamental than questions of how we represent or know the world. So in a way, like knowing thyself is an important thing, but knowledge through being is more important than just like knowing yourself epistemologically speaking. So this leads to led him to explore the question of being as primary over the above issues of knowledge and presentation. So in summary, Heidegger refused the Cartesian mental representation by questioning the underlying assumptions about the nature of human existence and its relation to the world. He argues for an existential, pre-reflective engagement with the world that precedes any grounds any abstract mental representation, thereby shifting the focus from epistemology to ontology, and from the isolated subject to being in the world that is Dasein. So this kind of arguments showed the limitations of symbolic AI and actually had an important impact on our research on symbolic AI at that time. So then the last part of my talk, where I'm going to talk about the role of Islamic philosophy as I see it. So according to Sheikh al-Akbar Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, the heart has two eyes, reason and imagination, and the dominance of either distorts perception and awareness. So I said, this is where if we are dealing with ML, machine learning too much, or then we are feeding mostly reason and weakening imagination, and so this will create an imbalanced worldview. So this stems from the ayah al khalq wal amr. So he's all creation and commandment. So this leads to alam al khalq, which is the word of creation, and alam al amr, which is the word of command. And so therefore we'll have there will be two categories of intellect: the original intellect based on inspiration, intuition, light, and direct perception of reality. So it's the one that responded to إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. So be and it is. So the question that philosophers asked at that time regarding this ayah is that how can Allah address something that is not even there? Because it tells it be and it is, but how can he address this as a start? So which means that there was something already before, which we call the I am thabita, the fixed entities, and whose existence is directly related to the knowledge of Allah. And the ones that responded to afterward, like ontologically speaking, not in time, because at that time there was no time. So it's one the am I not your Lord? So this leads to intellectual knowledge, but the so-called intellectual knowledge. The other intellect is the analogic intellect, so that is based on analogy with previous experiences, and this is what allows us to navigate in the phenomenal world, and it leads to what we call transmitted knowledge. So the aql is a living awareness of the way things actually are. This is a reminder of the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, "Oh Allah, show me the reality of all things as it really is." So Muslim intellectuals, Arifin, aim at actualizing the intellect, so awaken people to their own intellectual and spiritual nature, that is the divine image found in the heart. So this is what Al-Ghazali talks about. The heart is like a mirror that is reflecting the divine or reality as such, and one needs to focus on polishing the heart through fighting the head and nafs, and also to recollection, to remember things as they are. So this will allow us to see things as they truly are, and in view of acting appropriately. So we have the concept of truth. So we know that there is truth and there is falsehood, and so we recognize that. Once we recognize that, then we have to act appropriately, and therefore this leads to justice. Justice means that we want to do the right thing at the right time, and this is exactly what the definition of wisdom is. And so wisdom is really, Al-Ghazali defines what the Prophet ﷺ brought. So which is essentially following outwardly and inwardly what the Prophet ﷺ brought us. So from here, you see, if we are admit the premise that human beings have two kinds of intellect, then you could see the issue here is that Muslim researchers and in machine learning or users of machine learning should be aware that machine learning and AI models are feeding one kind of intellect, and they are based on a reductional approach. So here I'm using reductionist in a very general sense, in the sense that it's saying that we have only one kind of intellect, but really we have two kinds of intellect. And so because of that, so machine learning is most likely reducing and even closing the faculty of imagination. And so they are, in a way, it's just telling you that alam al-amr is not there, and therefore there is no soul, and therefore there is no wahi in a way. It's like cutting from revelation. And so they should take into account these two forms of intellect and make sure that one is feeding the soul and opening the other eye, because otherwise, if the other eye is always being fed, it's getting strong and strong. And then if you don't feed the other one, then it will be, as I'm saying here, it's like one-eyed, inframed being, and you will perceive reality in a very imbalanced way. So here I'm just saying that it's important for Muslim scholars to develop philosophical kind of arguments to deal with this sort of problems. Muslim researchers invest in training proper Islamic large language models in order to avoid falling into using bias. Means that we definitely distort the worldview of many Muslims, because if you are using it, then automatically you are going to be affected by it, whether you realize it or not. I mean, so the two examples of Nietzsche with the typewriter and the other one with the ChatGPT and the role of social media. So due to the inherent Islamophobic and racist bias of framing technologies, and here I'm just citing recent papers that illustrate the Islamophobic and racist bias in many elements. And so lastly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about why that it's important to keep the human dimension and make sure that AI is assisting human beings, not the other way around. So these are examples from medicine. So yes, I'm involved in some projects related to healthcare, and I also have some friends who are doctors who tell you that now, I mean, there is a trend among doctors themselves to use AI and GPT for diagnosis. And so there is a decline of physical exam, and this is how traditionally doctors were trained, like physical exam and looking at history. So traditionally findings on physical exam guide the physician to which investigative tests to pursue. However, in modern medicine, increasing dependence on technology has led to a decline in physical exam skills of physicians. And so this led actually to incorrect as well as delayed diagnosis. So the decrease in physical exam skills can be a threat to patient safety due to diagnostic errors. I found like some example online, but I'm sure there are other ones, which is the case, for example, of some patient who was misdiagnosed with Bell's palsy in ER, and who in reality had a stroke. So I don't remember whether he died or not, but see wrong with diagnostic. Another case is over-utilization of diagnostic imaging and other investigations is one factor in the rising cost of medical care. So we have tendency to think, AI is good for everything, but there is a cost associated to it. There is this kind of diseases that are called non-finding diseases or subclinical diseases. These are like disease processes that produce no symptoms or clinical evidence of illness. But the person having the disease does not experience it in any way, but the disease is detected by technological means. And it has been widely acknowledged that persons who otherwise are well can become ill at the very moment they become aware of the positive test. And also the World Health Organization recently warned about there are a few warnings. One of them is that medical AI can be dangerous for poorer nations. So the report emphasized that systems trained primarily on data collected from individuals in high-income countries may not perform well for individuals in low and middle-income settings. And also, it says that the World Health Organization cautions against overestimating the benefits of AI for health, especially when it occurs at the expense of core investments and strategies required to achieve universal healthcare. And it also finds that opportunities are linked to challenges and risks, including unethical collection and use of health data, biases also encoded in algorithms, and the risk of AI to patient safety, security, and environment. So I'm just going to, I'm going to skip that part. I'm going to conclude. So machine learning and AI are not philosophically neutral. The philosophical paradigm is reductionist. So here, reductionist, I said here, I'm using it in the wide sense that even what the intellect is reduced to what we call reason with little r, but it's neglecting our embedded faculty of imagination. So it's biased towards the Western atheistic agnostic worldview. So the overuse will most likely lead to adopting a non-Islamic philosophical position of being in the world. So Heidegger's concept of inframing is a complex and profound philosophical idea that can provide a critical lens through which to understand modern technology, including artificial intelligence and machine learning. Inframing refers to the way humans conceptualize nature and the world as a standing reserve, essentially as resources to be used, controlled, and ordered for efficient use. So this worldview transforms everything, including humans, into a commodity or resource. It's a mode of revealing that shapes how we see the world and our place in it, emphasizing utility, productivity, and control. So when applying in-framing to AI and machine learning, several interpretations and implications emerge. First one is reductionism and utilitarianism. So AI and machine learning might be seen as the pinnacle of in-framing, reducing complex organic reality into data and algorithms that can be manipulated and exploited. They turn human experiences, behaviors, and emotions into quantifiable and predictable patterns. So this includes also faith. I heard some people saying that they can decide and check whether you are in love or not by looking at the MRI, and whether you are a believer or not by just looking at the MRI. So everything just reduced to images, including our religious experiences. Second point is loss of essence. Heidegger was concerned with the essence of technology, which he believed was not something technical, but rather the way technology changes our relationship with the world. So with AI, this might mean a further distancing from the intrinsic value of beings in the world and a deeper immersion into seeing the world as something to be used and optimized. And the last point is challenge to humanity. So in-framing challenges the essence of what it means to be human. As AI and machine learning grow more sophisticated, they might reinforce the view of humans as resources or data points, thereby diminishing our understanding of human dignity, creativity, spontaneity, and essentially the divine mission of Khalifatullah. And yeah, so these are the references I use. And yeah, thank you for your attention.